Hey guys, it's E here from Virginia Grace Living. So in this video, I'm going to take about a half bushel of apples and turn that into a large batch of apple butter. So I'm going to be using my roasting pan for this video. It's very easy. It's something you can do while you're doing other things, right? So you load it up, let it cook down, come back and stir it throughout the day, and have yourself a nice batch of apple butter at the end. The very best part, I think, is that you don't even need to skin the apples. You let it cook slowly, they get soft, and at the end, if you have an immersion blender, which I do, or you can blend it, I guess, in a food processor. But I have an immersion blender, which I highly recommend. Just take that immersion blender towards the end and pulverize everything, and it just runs into a smooth and nice butter. I'm starting out with some Golden Delicious and a couple of Gala apples as well, just to fill it up. So I'm going to cut to the part where I fill up that roasting pan, and we're going to get those apples cooking. The first thing you want to do is go ahead and rinse your apples off real good, and if you have any spots or anything on them, just go ahead and cut those off. You don't have to get too crazy. They're going to be cooking at a very high temperature, so just take out any of the bad spots. I have an apple core, so I just poke the core out and then I chop it into four, just quarter it basically, and then throw it in the roasting. So we still have room in here, so I'm going to add some of the Golden Delicious apples as well. Alright, this has been going for about 20 minutes. We're going to actually go ahead and turn this down to about 225 because we have some stuff to do today, so I don't want this to burn while we're gone or anything like that. So give it a nice little stir down to 225, and then we're going to cover it and let that cook, and then we'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so this has been cooking for a couple hours here. It's starting to soften up. We've been stirring it here and there. And we're gonna go ahead and add in some spices and let that cook down some more and get nice and fragrant. Now I'm adding these in, but I'm probably going to adjust the flavor a little bit at the end as well, just to kind of see, once I get a good taste of it, we can adjust some from there. So we're going to add, right now we're going to just do 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. This is a big batch, so it's like a whole half bushel, so bear in mind I may end up adding more cinnamon, I'm not sure. So we got 2 tablespoons. We're going to do a little bit of cloves, not a ton. We're going to do probably a half teaspoon in here and just taste it later on. We're going to do 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg in there. You can do the pumpkin pie filling or pumpkin pie spice as well. We're going to do a little bit of allspice in there. Just a little bit of salt. And some vanilla extract. And we're just going to kind of let this cook. And at the end, we're going to blend it up and give it a taste and see if we need to adjust. So don't forget, every, hour or so, come in here and just stir this up. These are really breaking down pretty good now. I'm just going to let this kind of cook on low at about 250. Basically all day, probably until I'm ready to blend it up. I could come in here and probably hit it with the immersion blender here soon, but I'm just going to let this simmer with the spices in there for a while longer. And then at the end, we're going to add our sugar and everything, and then we'll go ahead and blend it up at that time. All right, so this is probably about ready to be blended up and add the sugar to and give it a good taste. So this is how it's looking right now. Let me get that a little closer for y'all. Really well cooked down and soft. I've been doing all kinds of other stuff today and just letting this cook. You can see that it's definitely cooked way down. It's starting to get that nice brown color. All right, so let's get the sugar poured in here, mix it up really well, and then we'll hit it with that immersion blender. We're just gonna go ahead and do 3 cups of brown sugar, and then we're gonna do 2 cups of regular sugar. Let's do 1.5 cups and see how that goes. All right, now we're gonna hit it with the immersion blender. All right, so this is, like I said, this is blended up really well now. You guys can see, but it's a little thin still for me. So we're gonna let it cook. We're gonna turn the heat up to 300, let it cook with the lid off for a little bit, and let some of that moisture come off and thicken up a little bit. All right, so that immersion blender takes care of all the peels and everything, so it's a lot better, a lot easier than trying to peel a whole half bushel of apples, right? We're gonna go ahead and give this a good taste real quick and just test it out to see if it needs any adjustment as far as spices and sugar goes. But if the taste is good, we'll leave it and just, like I said, let it cook and thicken up. It's really hot though, so be careful. I think it could maybe use a little bit more cinnamon. So we'll add a little bit more. This part is where you're just gonna go to taste on the spices that you want. And you know, like I said, it's not real particular on how I do this. It's just, you know, what you like, how you like it. All right? All right, so this is pretty decent consistency here. I could cook it and make it down a little bit thicker if I really wanted to, but this is fine for us. Flavor's good. I didn't really need to add anything else to it. Like I said, if you decide that you want to, you know, switch it up a little bit, you can. Mainly the point of this video is just to kind of show you how you can cook this down all day while you're doing other stuff, and then at the end of the day come back and finish it up. So right now what we're going to do is get it canned. But before we do that, we're going to let these jars get nice and hot. So we're heating these jars up, and then we're going to fill each jar as we will for the canning, and then we'll give them 10 minutes in a water bath. So I'm getting everything together here, and I'll show you how I do the water bath can for the apple butter. So I'm going to start pulling these out and putting the hot apple butter inside, sealing the rims, and then we'll get them back in here for that 10 minutes. All right, so it's important to make sure you're using hot jars for a couple different reasons. One, for sanitary, and another is if you go to fill, obviously, you know, room temperature or not so hot jars with hot apple butter and then put them into a boiling water bath, they could bust and crack or explode. I've actually had that happen a couple times, so I want to make sure that you're not doing that. So we're going to go to about a 1/4 inch headspace on this. Just get these filled up. Cool thing about this recipe is, I mean, if you're like pumpkin butter, you can do basically the exact same recipe and just do pumpkin butter. You can use fresh pumpkins that you've grown, or you can use pumpkin puree that you buy at the store, the canned stuff. Turns out pretty good that way too. My mom makes a really good apple pumpkin butter, which is really delicious as well. Alright, so when you're canning stuff, alright, make sure you wipe that rim. Make sure it's clean, there's nothing sticking around on that rim, because that'll mess up your seal later on. Alright, so these are brand new lids. I'm going to go ahead and put those on. and do this finger tight. Don't want to get too tight with these either whenever you're canning, or they can also explode. Alright, so that's that, and then we're going to keep on filling these up. Alright, so one thing you can also do to get the most out of your pan, once you start getting low, go ahead and put a little bowl over there. And that'll help you get all that stuff down here to the bottom, and you're not having to scrape around so much. Just a little tip. Alright, so we're going to get as many as we can in here for that 10-minute water bath. Alright, well, we'll have to process this in 2 batches. Alright, so we got this here. Gonna make sure that at least an inch of water is over, and we're gonna go ahead and start our timer for 10 minutes. Alright, so I have the next batch in there, 10 minutes. So at this point, notice I have the towel on the counter. You don't want to set these hot jars on a cold counter. It can also make them bust, so always just make sure you're setting it on a cooling rack or some kind of towel or something. I always just use a kitchen towel. So we're just gonna let these sit overnight, and we'll hear these little metallic clicks as these seal up, and we'll check for the seal tomorrow. But that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, if you have any questions, make sure you leave a comment, and I'll be happy to answer them. Like I said, you know, it's getting into fall, so we're preserving and getting different things, and these make really good gifts and everything around Christmas, Thanksgiving, and stuff as well. Alright, they're all done. Ended up with a real nice batch of apple butter. These will make really good gifts and stuff and last my big family a while. So we ended up with 6 half pints and 9 full pints of apple butter. So, looking good. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching. God bless.